this is not an answer. This is very much not an answer to the question. But I did want to highlight that at time of recording, the last 2 days in a row, we've had short scope where Blue has used the phrase full dong. Because we got Hot Frosty and the loincloth incident from Warhammer 40k back to back.
Blue does just like the phrase dong in general.
Dong is an inherently funny word.
It's one of the funniest ways to say penis. It's one of the funniest. Yeah. Because like
so
you can make that vowel as like round and nasally or weird as you want to, and the word still works.
And you can like there's dong and then there's dong. Like if you move the D further back in the
more New Yorkie.
mouth, yeah. The further back the D is, don't continue. This sentence read. End it now.
Weird quote to put on your statue.
Hello and welcome to a very special New Year's bonus episode of the Overly Sarcastic podcast. It has been another year of podcasting and YouTube and cat antics as we immediately had start at the beginning of this show.
Goofball gets up on the couch behind me and starts scratching up a storm right as Indigo's counting us in. I can't work like this.
What are we going to do under these conditions? But to anyone who's joining us for the first time, this is our annual New Year special where we recap all the fun things we've worked on this year, in addition to doing normal Ozpod stuff. And so we're going to have the first half be a little different. That is to say, it's going to be the same as all the previous New Year's podcast episodes, but it's not a normal episode. And we have a couple carefully selected categories in which Red and Blue have selected their preferred videos. Oh my god, it's speaking.
The best of the best of this year of OSP.
The superlatives of the year.
The superlatives of the year. And I'm just going to jump us right into this first category because clearly Indigo is struggling today. So we're going to
shorten the runway as much as possible.
Yeah. We're going to start with the most viewed videos from Red and Blue this year, and that is, a drum roll please.
I keep saying, like, we need to talk about Batman, like I'm starting some kind of drama YouTube vlog, but no, we're gonna be talking about Batman.
And in the face of outsiders who would destroy or plunder their books, cough cough French colonization in 1893,
Batman! And it's cool. It's like, oh, he is Batman. He's really in the sauce today. That's great.
Well, I say just. It's a desert, but you know what I mean.
Red's most viewed was Detailed Diatribe Being Batman, and Blue's was History Summarized Timbuktu.
Woo!
A fun variety of options here. This category always skews towards the beginning of the year, naturally, but sometimes we get one of those like mid-year detailed diatribes that just pop the hell off, and those are always super fun to see.
Yeah, the Batman one was very interesting. I feel like every time we do a detailed diatribe about a superhero, we sort of run into the problem that like we're only ever talking about one specific version of the character, and it's like this is the DCEU version of Batman, like this is the Kevin Conroy Batman, like we can just follow this and trail through it. And there were a lot of people who were like, well, my favorite version of Batman does not have any of these issues. And it's like, oh, that sounds extremely boring. Not trying to shade. I after this video came out, I did watch through some other various Batman shows that portray Batman in a different light. I thought it was really interesting. In The Batman, he's a very normal Bruce Wayne.
He's too well adjusted.
He's too well adjusted. It really feels like being Batman is like a thing he's trying out post-college because he's like not entirely sure what else to do with his life. And then I watched Beware the Batman, and that Batman has far more issues. And it's the one where like Batman and Bruce Wayne talk about each other in the third person. And it's like, that's usually a poor sign. But talking about the Conroy Bat was so fun. And like I got to talk about Batman Beyond, my beloved, probably the DCEU show that I like the most of by the numbers. Like I was just talking with some friends about this last night about like Clone Wars, because we were comparing quality-wise Rebels to Clone Wars, and they were sort of like, well, I think that like Clone Wars has a lower quality floor, but like, and they were like, well, which one has more good episodes? Like, I think they have about the same percentage of good episodes, but like the bad Clone Wars are worse than the bad Rebels. I was like, this is fascinating. It's a fascinating way to run it down. And I love Batman the Animated Series, but it's got a low floor, and Batman Beyond does not. I think the worst one is like Terry's friend dates a robot, and maybe the Egg Baby, but the Egg Baby one is delightful. fight me.
Yeah.
We stand the egg baby in this house.
I haven't watched
Robin.
too much Batman Beyond, but my understanding of the egg baby as the trope is that it was a thing in the 80s and 90s where you would take an egg home and you had to like raise it like baby. Did they futurize that at all, or is it still just normal egg?
Yeah, it's got a bunch of sensors and junk, and it makes faces.
It's shaped like an egg. It's got a little bit of a robot face. It gets abducted by bad guys because he brings it along on his mission. Because obviously, if he leaves it alone, he'll get a bad grade in home ec, and he'll have
Robin
to retake
starting
it next
before he hatches.
Exactly. Although it's quite funny because when he's got the egg baby in the back of the bat jet, and Bruce hears a baby crying over the intercom, he's like, "Terry, is there something you want to tell me?"
Don't tell me I'm a grand Batman, Terry.
So good. Did you guys not have to do the egg baby or correlating We had to raise a flour sack baby in middle school.
I've heard of those.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of home ec in a public school. We did about half a semester of it, and I think maybe I learned how to iron something, and I don't know that I could actually iron something today. So
amazing.
I mixed up baking powder and baking soda, and my home ec teacher was not mad, just very disappointed.
Also because we didn't do it, my drink for today is hot chocolate. I made it myself.
Nice.
It's got the good stuff in it. It's chocolate and cocoa powder.
Nice.
I feel like I had to, step it up a little bit.
I've got some green tea, some cherry blossom tea from Harney & Sons, and an OSP Greek myth mug that you can get on our merch store right now.
Whoa.
Indigo also has an OSP mug on hand.
Yes,
Nope
my
mug,
favorite.
which
I like it
is
for
so good.
I love a little prop. I love a little gag. I love a visual gag, and it has coffee in it. Just coffee, man. Maybe there's a splash of milk in this actually, because the coffee I had was pretty bad. But
there's some of my favorite merch designs, but nobody bought them except for you. Basically, I was like, I would happily make so many prop mugs, but nobody else wants them. No one understands my vision.
Sometimes they're just for us.
Yeah,
the Batman video was great, and taking a lot of people's archetypical Batman and breaking down what makes him so interesting.
Yeah.
It's a great discussion. Surely we'll have to find another opportunity to talk some bats in the future. But
Well, the Superman trailer just dropped.
It
as of
did.
recording today.
I'm gonna have us table any Superman trailer discussion until a later date, because we got to talk about Timbuktu as well, which was the other.
We got to talk about Timbuktu. Yeah, this
category.
is my most years tradition of doing some African history video for February, and I didn't know what I wanted to do this year, and I was like, Red, if I don't have anything by 12 o'clock when I start my research day, I'm just gonna do Timbuktu, and then I was like, I don't know why I'm giving myself this weird, sort of Damocles over. I'm just gonna do Timbuktu and see what I find, because I know what it is. I don't know anything about it, but I know it exists. So let's dig in. What do I find? It's this is the coolest goddamn place on earth, rocketing its way up to Blue's top 5 cities ever. So fun to dig into. On the macro cultural perspective, and then into specifically what was going on in the city and what made it so interesting. There were a lot of different things happening in that video that I think made it click as well as it did with the cultural aspect, language, books, the architecture in Timbuktu, the way that the mosques need to be not reupholstered, but paved. They put the mud brick back on every year. It's recoated, and that becomes a community aspect, tending to it like a garden. I thought was so cool. So I had a blast putting this video together, and people seems to really enjoy it.
I think it had one of the strongest jumps from what someone probably knows going into it to what someone knows going out, because I think the only context I had for the word Timbuktu was that
it's far.
It's far. You take the bus to Timbuktu, and that's all you got. I was like, and I'm sure it's just because it was long word that sounds foreign, and that's the only reason it got used for that. But man, the actual city is so cool.
So cool. Yeah. I had a lot of some commenters are like, wait, Timbuktu's real? I'm like, oh buddy, well, welcome in. Now you know.
How was I to know? It was in the dark continent.
Oh God.
Straight out of the 1930s, baby.
And that's why I do these videos, because it's important.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I loved it a lot. It's just so cool. It's so cool. The library city. It rules. Oh God, all of North African history is great. I guess this is kind of northwest central Africa. The geography gets a little medley, but like talking about like the desert and the Sahel and the Sahara and how the climates move was really cool. Getting to bring a little bit of that that kind of like natural history aspect into it. So yeah, a lot of elements going into this video that I think made it so compelling that I was able to talk at it from like 8 different angles. So
I can't remember the first time I learned about the Sahel and the fact that it moves north and south with the borders of the Sahara, and there are just people who live there, herding pastoralists who just follow the environment as it shifts north and south. Coolest shit ever.
That would have been probably in your African Civ class.
It could have been. There was some anthropology courses I took. Yeah, that would definitely line up then. Yeah. College is all one big mass in my mind now, just one big haggis of knowledge.
College is already so goddamn weird.
Well, hopefully we can wade through that mass of knowledge and find the next category, which is the favorite of your own videos. So Red's favorite Red video and Blue's favorite Blues video. And if I could get my artificial drum roll, please.
Venisa. Oh, no. Wait, no, wrong clip.
No, little humans, get out of there. The color puce genta is very bad for organics.
Oh, no. Oh, that'd be the worst. Oh, man, dang, that's crazy, man. Anyway, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it.
I mean, grown-ups know that animals can't talk, obviously.
Red's favorite was Trope Talk, Small Mammal on a Big Adventure, and Blue's was History Hijinks, the worst Venetian ever.
Yeah.
You were between 2 different trope talks this year.
Yeah.
Talk about that. I want to hear you explain. You laid it out in the chat the other day.
It's true, yeah. Because for me, it came down between Small Mammals and Noodle Incidents. Because sometimes I work on a trope, and then when I start scripting more, I just keep referencing back, like, as we discussed in this trope. Yeah. And, like, Noodle Incidents...
Which is so satisfying to be able to do.
It's like, refer back. Yeah, little footnote, as seen previously in issue 597.8. But yeah, with Noodle Incidents, it kind of turned into this foundational element of like it popped up in environmental storytelling because it's just really useful shorthand for like some shit happened and we're not going to talk about exactly what it was because the story's better if we don't. And like that is it's so useful to have shorthand for that because otherwise as a concept it's a little bit hard to communicate of like why would story not show thing? Show me thing, I want thing. So Noodle Incidents was like most structural, but the one I had the most fun with, just mulling over, just for sheer weirdness factor, was definitely Small Mammal on a Big Adventure because I was like doing the research for it like October of that year, previous year leading into it was like, rereading, Rats of Nim and the one whose name keeps escaping me with the fucked up plague pit full of rat ghosts. It's in the video. No, that's the webcomic about the mice in a nuclear apocalypse, which I also really liked.
Okay, but you said plague pit, so you understand.
No. This is like bubonic plague pit. Like they're excavating and they're like, the dirt has started burning our claws, my lord, and it's because of their lie, because it's a plague pit. Anyway, it's good. It's in the video. Go watch Small Mammal Big Adventure and tell me what book I'm talking about, because it's got like a really, I remember, it's The Dark Portal, and you can understand why that name does not stick in my mind and say, this book is about rats. Because anyway, I really loved unpacking it, just immersing myself in this tiny little genre of tiny little people, and like all the weirdnesses about it, the disparity between the books and the adaptations. Nim was the interesting one because I had never watched the movie, although I know it's very formative for a lot of people. So I read the book and I was like, Oh, is she crying?
I just sneezed.
Oh, she heard me talking about her favorite snack. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's so interesting. And I don't know, it's one of those, there were a lot of comments on it that were like, this is something I've never in my life thought about, but now I'm not going to be able to stop thinking about it. And that is my favorite.
It's such a weird, like, why is this a trope that small mammals go on these adventures? Why is it so specific?
Why is it always mice, too? And why do we have this, like, moralized disparity where, like, mice are good, rats bad, where it's like, rats you can have as pets, mice are vermin, and they wreck crops that we need to live. So, like, I don't know.
Like 50 years of mouse propaganda in cartoons going back to Tom and Jerry.
For sure, yeah. I think it really does boil down to that, where it's just like, we got to root for the little guy, we got to root for the underdog, and what's more underdog than this little fellow? So I totally understand that. But yeah, no, I just had a good goddamn time doing it, like playing around with it, like dappling and writing my own little like mouse on an adventure, just to lean into the like, if this is your perspective on an otherwise familiar world, how does it feel? And sometimes when I'm working on a trope, I don't want to go on for this too much longer because there's, other videos in this video, but one thing that's interesting for me is when I start developing very strong opinions about something I had previously never thought about. And in this specific case, I was like, man, there's such the dramatic irony, cosmic horror element of this trope is so useful. And then I kept running into stories where it's like the mice can understand human language, and I'm like, why? Explain to me why. I think it would be cooler if they couldn't. Could we maybe do one where they can't? Like that, that kind of thing. I was running into that script I was just working on the other day. I was like, I'm developing very strong opinions about which of these are the best and which ones aren't, and that. I need to fucking keep a lid on that because I'm trying to be not objective, but at least like educational rather than just like, I like it when they do this. Anywho, but yeah, so.
Yeah, that's fun. On my end of things, my favorite video was the worst Venetian ever. Not so much for the video itself, but what it represents in the context of like, that was the video where I announced the Veneziad and first, unveiled the book to everybody. So for a 7-year project on the back burner that I haven't said a goddamn peep about on the channel for all this time, and then suddenly it's like, look, here it is, I've been working on it, and you can now like see what it looks like now. That was really, really great. And the video itself was like also very fun and stupid in a very charming way, because I think like obliquely referenced it in my Doge's Palace video, and I was like, yeah, so this guy who was working on like this part of the facade like got arrested for treason. We don't have time for that. And then I can go over here like, oh, hey, by the way, this guy got beheaded for crimes and has a plaque in the Doge's Palace that says this dumb fuck got beheaded for crimes.
The power of the unmatched power of get a load of this guy rings out through the eons.
But being able to not like bait and switch the worst Venetian ever into the Veneziad, but to kind of basically do exactly that. As a little 3-video series of the worst Venetian ever, Venice Steals a Saint, and then the Saint Marks. I like being able to kind of have that little mini season of Venice when I can have a bunch of videos aligned on a theme. It was cool. And then also this year we got to announce that Aurora is going into physical publication, which is super cool.
Big year for publishing.
Yeah, so big year for OSP books.
Yeah, it was an interesting double whammy because. Not to go off on the tangent, but we were both...
No, I teed you up. I roped you into this.
Well, we were both navigating extremely different ends of the publishing spectrum, because you had like the Wraithmarked Kickstarter where they were like, you're breaking all the records. We won't be able to... We're going to need to account for you when we make our charts, which is always such a compliment. And then at the same time, I was going through the very kind of, not slow, but compared to webcomic speed, traditional publishing is a strange beast, and so we were sort of like celebrating the Kickstarter, and then I'm like, okay, how much of this do I have to do? I've never done this before. Do you need me to like redraw all the art? Because I don't want to do that, but do you need me to? Because I will.
You need me to redo every single page in ASCII art, and then you guys draw it from there? Do
I need to go in pixel by pixel and perfectly replicate every single page? I don't know how this works. Do I need to sort the sand by color? I can't tell. But yeah, no, it was super interesting. I'm really excited because with the Veneziad, it's like, well, we can do all the bells and whistles this time. And I'm so excited. It's going to be so shiny.
Oh, it's going to be so fucking shiny. Yeah. I haven't seen any physical versions of it. We still have to do a lot of the interior art and we don't have a spine design yet. We don't have a back cover design yet. It takes time, but it's coming along. So it's very exciting. Should be out and shipped to people next summer sometime, but who knows when. I've got a stack of things behind me that I have to sign. So it's in progress, but
next summer is also going to be a big season for us because that's theoretically when Aurora Volume 1 drops. So
so it'll be very funny that like I announced this thing in June of this past year, and then our books come out within imagine they come out within a week of each other.
I kind of hope they do.
It'd be really funny.
We'll be able to cut our promotional tweeting in half. We could just be like, hey, do you want historical Venice or high fantasy superhero bullshit?
Do you want either of these?
Either of these. Take a pick.
Both is good. But speaking of both is good, you guys also had favorites of each other's video, which is going to bring us to our next category, Red's favorite blue video and Blue's favorite red video. So, artificial drum roll, please.
Oh, now we're doing the drum roll.
The weirdest thing about ancient history is that it had its own ancient history.
And talk about the book.
The Achaeans successfully sacked Troy, and it's a happy ending for everyone. kind of. Really, it's a happy ending for almost no one.
The one pattern with the detailed diatribes thus far has been like, hang on, I've got more to say about this thing.
Of course we're doing the drum roll.
Well, I was like, when are we gonna? I did up my pose. When's the drum roll happening?
It's happening now, and it is revealing that Red's favorite Blue video was Detailed Diatribe Redeeming Revenge of the Sith, and Blue's favorite Red video was Legend Summarized The Heroes of Greece.
Oh, shucks. Here we go.
I don't want to say I bullied you into doing this video, but after I like got my first hit on the complete history of Rome, I'm like, you gotta try this, man.
I think like you watched me talk myself into it because
Yes.
I was like, I mean, like it doesn't even work for me because like they don't even go in like a linear order because I did them all like with no regard for the timeline, which has to exist actually now that I think about it, and it's not like the videos are in that order, and I would have to go in and add context and clarification and correct some things I fucked up. So yes, it was the space of like a 5-minute turnaround between like, well, this would never work to like, okay, so I've already got the script done.
Yeah, you sent me a script that day.
It felt like it was cheating because like videos that long shouldn't be that easy, you know? Because it was truly just like, I mean, the hard part was emotionally rewatching all my older videos and finding things to fix. And I very much adhere still. I hold to my principles. I don't go back and like redo old things just because I don't think that they're up to my standards anymore. You got to move forward. You can't keep recycling what you're doing back. For me,
You're talking about anybody.
It's look. I'm more prone to obsessing over things than you are. So for me, it's more of a hazard.
This is one of my favorite phenomenons that OSP has that I've noticed with you guys is that you can get talked into doing something that you are very vehemently against at first, which is what happened with this podcast, and also not fully, because Red, you are admirably still very committed to not like redoing old material, but you did create a compilation of old material with some new material added all together.
I did.
Which
yeah.
is
The
sort
director's
of Red getting
commentary,
talked
though, is a
into
very
it.
different style that I think accomplishes something else.
We're in the DVD box extras, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A lost art in the age of streaming, which is
I know.
unfortunate.
Blue, do not get me started.
save it for the ass. But yeah, no, it was really interesting to put together, and like being able to sort of weave the threads between them was fun. There were a couple free floating ones. I think Midas I probably could have put later in the timeline, but he's kind of disconnected.
Yeah, he's just there.
He's just there. He's the get a load of this guy of the ancient Greek big names. And it was kind of funny because I think I got the idea for that like moments before I was like, oh wait, I already have Cadmus in the works. That's like the last one that I have to finish so he can be the first of the big heroes. Which it was very strange. And there were like only 2 parts where I was like, I have to change this a little bit because I cut the Iliad in half so I could put, or I cut the Trojan War in half so I could put the Iliad in the middle. And I had to recant my statement about recommending people watch Voltron Legendary Defender on Netflix. But that was the only thing I changed. But yeah, no, it was fun, and it was very interesting because, of course, like the whole time I was working on that was also around the time where I was like, I don't know if I have many more small-scale myths in me. Like, I don't know if I have the motivation for that, at least not as fast as I was putting them out at the time, which was about 1 a month. And so I was sort of having this odd ennui of like, oh, I've been doing this for so long, and like I've grown so much, but at the same time, it's like the jump from like Iliad to Midas was pretty good, but I think that was like in the space of 5 years the art changed that much, and in the next 5 years the art changed much less, at least to my eyes. And so I was like, yes, I need to start pushing myself more so that the jumps go back to being impressive rather than just like the same picture. But yeah, no, it was fun. The director's commentary was very, very interesting and a fun way to trace the thread through it. And I did like the one bit of tonal indulgence in that video where, because mostly it's haha funny, it is jokey joke. I love playing the intro to the Trojan War stream. I love Wrath. It's my favorite thing to do. So it's the only time I pump the brakes on the comedy haha fun times in the ancient Greek clusterfuck that is the space of the big heroes.
It's like, wait a minute, these books are actually good. You guys, hold on. But as a kind of like a consolidation of all the work that has been done in the Mist Myth playlist for a decade, bringing that into one thing where it's like, look, it all actually does fit. They exist on their own, but there is a larger culture that we can see and see how it changes over time, elevates it to something beyond just, here are these videos in a playlist by, order they were published. So I love to see that kind of work come together, because I think it's what can get so easily lost in YouTube when there's just like all these videos into soup. That's what I enjoyed about doing Rome, and that's what I really enjoyed about seeing Heroes of Greece.
Thanks.
But no sentimentality, because we got to talk about Star Wars.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I have to say. It was just a really good video, and I love being able to justify my enjoyment in the thing that I liked.
It's
and
great.
Tell everyone to read the Revenge of the Sith novelization. It's so fucking good.
I don't remember if we mentioned I think we mentioned it in the video, the story behind why you wanted to do that, because like, again, we were hanging out with some friends. They had the Star Wars novelization, and I was like, this one looks funny, and I pulled it off the shelf, and I was like, I was a bad party guest. I was like engrossed for 10 minutes. But yeah, no, I mean, I am fascinated with adaptation as a concept. I think the translation from one art form to another is always so interesting, and taking one story and executing it in different ways, I always think is so interesting. You can learn so much by doing the compare and contrast. And the thing is, like, I think that Revenge of the Sith is 80% of it is better than the previous two movies. And then the back 20% of it is worse by far. That's my take. I think that as soon as Anakin just fucking starts turning to the dark side in the fastest, fall from grace I've ever seen, the whole thing falls apart, because you stop being able to make sense of the characters. They just start moving into the position they have to be in for the beginning of episode 4. And seeing the novelization, or the pre-movie novelization, where it's like, this is what this story could have been like, with just a little bit of spit and polish. It could have been this, and we didn't get that. I mean, we got the book, but,
We got the book.
Yeah, and I think it was also interesting, because I liked how you brought up other attempts to redeem Revenge of the Sith, because it really all does kind of fit this same concept of, like, this could be good. It doesn't even take that much, just a little bit. Save it in the edit. You could have done this.
Yeah.
And I remember this is a thing we've been mulling over since, like, we met in high school. So, like, some of our early chats, there was these video series, I can't remember now. Somebody was essentially proposing their redoing of the prequels, like how would we have done it?
On.
Yeah. I don't even know if they're still up. It was a while ago, but it was a long
Belated Media. What if Star Wars Episode 1 was good?
Right. Yeah. And I remember
12 years old. Yeah.
Woo, hefty boy. But I remember for episode 3, he was mostly like, okay, yeah, we're going to basically just do fresh storyboards for this one. We're barely using any footage from the original. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's so funny to me how many channels are just people reinventing fan fiction from first principles and calling it analysis.
Yeah.
No shade. It's just like, those are two different things.
But also, I found it interesting that we're getting off track here, but in that video series, like, episode 1 is like, oh, this is so cool. And then in episode 3, it's like, oh, actually, I like the original episode 3 better.
Well, I mean, you do.
Because once again, he wrote himself into a corner, and that's the difficulty with these kinds of stories. So it is insane that the book is so good, and so cool to see the other ways in which people in professional Star Wars, and then Kurosawa mode, whatever, which I broke the link to. I feel so fucking bad about that. Yeah, I think it's up now if you like Google it, but I took it out of the description because I overloaded the Google Drive.
You death hugged that man.
I'm glad I downloaded a copy for myself.
Frustrat.
It was great to talk about my favorite Star Wars movie. Well, Rogue One. Rogue One's the best.
Yeah, we dealt with that one later. It is so funny, though. Every time we make a video about Star Wars, we're always like, this will be nice and uncontroversial, neglecting to consider the fact that
the existence of all of the rest of Star Wars.
Well, the existence of all the rest of Star Wars, the existence of Star Wars' entire fan base, and the opinions therein. There are some fandoms where it's like, you bring it up and it's like, yeah, that's cool. Let's agree to disagree or something. And Star Wars is certainly a fandom that exists.
Breaks a bottle on the table.
This is a good example of one of the many challenges that you guys face. And one of your challenges is your own videos. This next category is most challenging.
Enter the Pope.
And I have learned to never use one word when 15 will do.
That tracks. And even worse, those two women were having sex about it. Gross.
At no point does he ever suggest it was created by anyone other than the ancient Egyptians, a standard of decency that several modern storytellers fail to live up to.
Red's most challenging was the Halloween special Mummies, and Blue's was Pope Fights the Pornocracy.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we can talk about the Mummies one first because
Yes.
that was both of us.
I'd
And
love
I
if
think
you
on
guys
the
could
podcast
talk-
afterwards, we did mention, like, this represents the hardest we've worked on any single video.
Yeah. We brought it up in the pod a few times, but because it was a collab, and we have done those before, but like outside of the detailed diatribe format, which is effortless for us. Like one of us makes a slideshow, we get on a call for a couple hours, it comes together in a day. It's like that.
It feels like cheating.
Again, it's like Heroes of Greece. It's like it shouldn't be this easy to make something this long and fun. But yeah, with the Mummies, it's like it's a collab. Both of us are making a video that is roughly twice as long as our average video length, and then we are stitching them together and going from there.
Yeah.
And it worked. People really liked it. It kind of broke our analytics curve a little bit because it was just like, oh, okay, this is just woo, this is keeping going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think also it had a quicker turnaround than my videos. I mean, for you, we had a slightly longer run up because you were also working on other videos at the time. But I always need like multiple months to make a long video happen, and this one I had to do in like a month, and that was difficult. I think also we were leading up to there was a trip. A con, I think, that we were going to be doing.
I believe this was right around New York Comic-Con time.
Right.
Comic-Con,
Yeah.
right,
Because basically I had the hard deadline that, like, if I don't finish before this, I'm going to need to finish in, like, the 3 days I have after it. So I stress tested the strat that I then refined and perfected for this year's Strange to the West episode, which was essentially getting most of the video done and then storyboarding out the frames and then drawing the frames from like my iPad, which I can do from anywhere rather than my main tablet set up on my computer, which is very different. And at the time of the Mummies video, I didn't really have that polished up. I was sort of like, okay, I have the script in front of me, and it's like, okay, I need to think of a visual for this part of the script. And by the time I got to Journey to the West, I was like, I storyboarded the whole thing in like 4 days, and then I just sat down and turned all of those storyboards into actual frames that looked good. But I didn't have that down for the Mummies, so it was a little bit more like challenging.
Being able to do a video with myths and history and literature and film all in one, bouncing between that, keeping the pacing up was a huge challenge of script writing, in addition to the research challenge of getting all that information in one spot.
Yep.
So making it flow even remotely as well as it did was an insane effort. And if it felt like just comfortable and calm to watch, that's because we put a lot of work into that specifically. And it very easily could have not worked that well. But I think it's a testament to how excited we both were to work on this. And put a lot of effort into making it as good as possible, that it ended up turning out so well. And it's like, this is great. We can do this like once every couple of years max.
Yeah. It was also rare to find a subject matter that actually like synced up between our topics so much. Because like with Mummies, because initially my plan was, normally the Halloween specials are more my thing. And so I was like, okay, Mummies is a good one to unpack. And I was like, I can't do this without addressing the historical context of Egyptomania. Initially, we were thinking like, I was going to delve more into like actual ancient Egyptian concepts of this stuff, which, I do a little bit. But there's not much there beyond what we talked about. Like there was a couple other stories, but undead stories in ancient Egypt were mostly ghost stories, which is one of the more common ways for undead stories to show up. I think you can mostly get revenants in like Scandinavian folklore and Icelandic sagas and stuff. That's where you get like the wrestling zombies and Draugr and stuff like that. But you didn't really get animated mummies. You just got like dead guys like, hey, no robbing my tomb, and then it kind of just goes from there. But yeah, initially I was like, we're gonna need to This is slightly unrelated. It's always fun to me when I am proven wrong from my initial assumption in the research process, because in this specific case, I assumed that the timelines between the breaking of hieroglyphs, the understanding of how to decipher them, and like Egyptomania and all that stuff, and the development of the stories were going to align in a different way. I thought it would take much longer for us to get to the decipherment of hieroglyphs, and that part of the reason why all these early stories had nothing in common with ancient Egyptian folklore was just because nobody knew it. And it's like, no, they knew.
Yeah, it
didn't matter. I think part of the reason I thought that is because the last thing they had. You can identify what forgeries were made before hieroglyphs were cracked, because the hieroglyphs don't make any goddamn sense, and like the quality of them improved as time went on. And I think my brain was like, clearly that is also how it worked in the world of fiction, and it does not seem to have been the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on the other side of that, way more silly, was Pope Fights the Pornocracy, which was a wild research process. And the reason that I have it as a challenge is because of the framing for the video kind of bounced around in my head a little bit before I realized what I was doing. Because when I came to the topic, I had previously understood it as like, oh, it's this silly thing with these silly people having sex in the Vatican and being all like gross and sex about it and like, haha, what a wild time. And then as I did the research, it's like, oh, wait, this is actually a really complicated game of like realpolitik playing out over like generations of families fighting each other with complex relationships to the power structures up in, the Holy Roman Empire across the Alps, and these people getting themselves into these wacky scenarios where they have to call on help from way up north, and then you crown the Holy Roman Emperor, and then you're like, wait, hold on, I made him way too strong, I'm going to form a league, and then he kicks you out, and then these other guys come in charge, and then, 3 generations down, your family comes back and kicks them out, and then, Benedict IX shows up, and we get back to the first Pope fights again. But looking at, like, why is the story so, typified as the worst thing that's ever happened in the Catholic Church? And it's like, is that true? Abundantly no. Who does it benefit for that to be true? So treating it as, like, almost a mini History Makers, where I'm looking at, like, what is going on in the history for this to have been written that way? And then why did this interpretation become popularized later, both by Protestants and by Catholics? Because it's really convenient for, Protestants to be like, oh my God, look at the corruption of the Church. And it's really convenient for Catholics to be like, yes, look at this being the worst thing we've ever done.
Yeah, look over
it's
here.
better for us if you think this is the worst thing we've ever done.
Oh, look at all those icky women we got up in here. We'll never make that mistake again.
And then talking about that bastard Lutprand, who I'm not done with. I have more videos or more video for him. Hopefully early next year. Yeah, exactly. He's gonna get what's coming to him. But that was a real challenge for me, like, leveling up as a historian, of like taking this objective like joke of a topic and being like, wait, this is actually really interesting, complicated, and there's a lot going on under the hood of how this history came to us. So for the kind of like rhetorical hoist of taking the topic and then turning it into that video, I think it was the biggest kind of research and analytical challenge that I overcame this year. And it turned into a damn fine video. If this wasn't my number one challenge, I might have put this as my number one favorite of the year. It's, yeah. It was
really interesting. I think a lot of the time when people discuss history, there's this sort of idea that the idealized form of it is the true factual events of what happened in linear order. And the problem is that's not really how human communication works or thought. It's all storytelling. Always has been. And I think that just pointing out, saying the quiet part out loud of like, hey, who benefits when the story is told this way, I think is just, it's so simple. And it is so crucial to a more enlightened understanding of history, not in like the events that occurred, but in the way that you are taught them and the way that the information is presented. And I just think like just casually pointing that out in a YouTube video of like, hey, who benefits when we talk about it this way? Because like, haha, funny, yeah, but also like, hey, wait a minute. Is this just misogyny again with extra steps?
I don't want to like toot my horn on this too much, but when I was looking online, and obviously like books about this will be better, but it's really hard to find books about the pornography specifically.
Whoa.
I mean,
you were looking in the wrong section,
is it a Freudian
sir?
slip if that's just the thing itself? But like I didn't see any substantive analysis of like what was going on under the hood of the pornocracy in basically any of the research that I was conducting. A lot of my interpretation is my interpretation. So I feel like I was able to actually do kind of a service in like, usually I'm not saying anything that, someone hasn't figured out before, but in this case it's like, if this exists on the internet, it's really goddamn hard to find. So here is like a good analysis of this thing, because on YouTube it's just memes and jokes about Marozia being a big old slut, or oh, look at all these popes that banged. But I felt like I actually was able to accomplish like creating something approximating scholarship online, whereas most of the documentation is like from very religiously biased sources, where it's like, even if they're telling the story mostly straight, it's like, this is a Catholic website, like there's not going to be much that I can really take from this. No. So I don't know, not to make myself seem like a genius or, you know, whatever, but I feel like I was actually kind of accomplishing something with this video, which felt good.
That's a rare treat.
Rare treat, yeah. Something else that's a rare treat is getting to talk about the videos that you guys think the audience is sleeping on. This next category is Y'all Sleepin'. Bringing it back from last year, all about the videos that you guys think people are sleeping on. I don't know how else to describe it. It's kind of as much a joke of a phrase as it is a real category. So if I could get a drum roll, please.
So, what did Cole actually paint? In a word, landscapes.
Diamond ring! Diamond ring!
That sounds like academically unassailable carte blanche to make this History Makers series about whomever the hell I want.
And got rained on again.
Oh yeah, this bodes well.
The winners, Red's Y'all Sleepin' is so about that total eclipse, and Blues is History Makers Thomas Cole.
Woo!
I can talk about Thomas Cole real quick. I mean, he's my guy. I've had his paintings here in like all of my apartments since like 2018.
Blue's been a fan for a while.
Yeah, and I knew that I wanted to talk about him for a while, and I didn't feel like I quite had the sauce to do it until this year. And being able to look at, you know, art as a history maker's topic beyond just like books and literature, I feel like was really cool to be able to open that up. And then going into, you know, art criticism and analysis and cracking open the paintings and talking about how they don't just, you know, capture an aesthetic sense of, you know, here's this, you know, basically, you know, near professional architect who is also like one of the most important painters in American history, and how he kind of creates this this imagined civilization, but what he's saying about history through that, being able to surface that and do a bunch of like fun editing when I was going around with the paintings and like playing my different music when I get to a different painting, talking with Destruction and then throwing Sign of the Colossus from Shadow of the Colossus in there was the best musical choice I've ever made on this channel.
You've experienced the joy that I used to experience back in my AMV days. Yeah. Because sometimes just putting the music and the visual together hits just right.
Yeah, so this one didn't get the most viewership. It got the least viewership of anything I put out this year. But that's okay because the people who watched it really liked it, and it is just such a great video. I feel like it similarly to the Pope fights, it helped me level up in a way that I didn't even realize I could. And I love the work I was able to do with my favorite painter, Thomas Cole.
I think it's been really cool watching you get to kind of expand history makers out to different kind of categories of history makers this year, like with artists and even dipping into like architecture a lot more. I think that's a really neat angle and something that like it's cool to get to see you flex with a little bit.
No, it's really fun. I also really liked how you pointed out themes throughout the paintings that I never look for, because I use the Course of Empires anytime I need like a stock trope discussion of. I used it all the time in environmental storytelling. I think I probably threw it into ancient superweapons somewhere because it's just very useful for like I needed some ruins. All right, let's go. But like I never paid attention to the fucking Mario and Luigi fights going on in all those paintings. Like,
oh my God, yeah.
Why would I have paid attention to that? They're itty bitty and the painting is big. But like I don't know, just tracing those threads I thought was really fun. And I really love the expansion of the definition of history maker because it's all true. It's not like only historians who wrote down books that were labeled history count. You know, everyone was contributing to it. Aren't we all history makers in our own way? Sort of, a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
What is history without the common man? So this is fun. I think that this is definitely one that deserves the Y'all Sleepin' bump. I think if people haven't checked it out, they absolutely should. It's just such an interesting angle on a really interesting space. And also, not again, kind of the thing I talked about with like the Trojan War. Sometimes it's fun to get a little serious and just to sit down and be like, we're just going to sit down and analyze this and point out all the cool things I like, which is, I guess, the more serious version of what we just do in detailed diatribes. Where it's like, no, you're going to listen. This is cool shit that I like.
There's so much going on in those paintings. It's truly insane, and I'm glad I was able to make the video at the time I did because someone on the Discord asked me to refer them to one of my sources for a specific quote, and I was like, oh, let me pull up the Thomas Cole Historical Society and their amazing website that had this interactive portal where you could go through a bunch of his paintings with notes of oh, here's the specific character here that's doing this points to this thing in a later painting, here is a quote from Cole talking about his process, or here's a sketch of an early version of it. And that website was nuked within days of the video going live.
Did you death hug it again?
No, it just they were rebuilding their website, and that specific page just got completely yanked. So I was able to get it off of archive.org, but if I was to have begun researching that video 2 weeks later, it might not have even been there, which is insane. So there's so much stuff that, I mean, the knowledge still exists out there, but not easily on the internet anymore. So I'm glad I was able to do the video at the time that I did, because holy shit. I don't know why they got rid of that website. It was so good.
Blue's year of destroying links.
Oh my
inadvertently
God.
or inadvertently.
Everything I touch crumbles. Mine was the Eclipse. I had it down to 2, and you persuaded me to do the Eclipse, because the other one was a detailed diatribe. It was the one about the Future Boy Conan and how it inspired Wind Waker, because I thought I was fucking cracking open a
You were.
I was, yeah. I hadn't seen anyone else talk about this connection, and the general response was huh. All right, or nitpicks, but that's fine. Just because I went down the fucking Pepe Sylvia rabbit hole for a week straight doesn't mean everyone else has to. It's fine. But the Eclipse, mostly because I was that was this year. I had a pretty good year. I think it was generally pretty solid. I had a lot of fun with the stuff I made. I feel like I'm ending it in a good place. But it was long, and I didn't think that was April of this year. That was
No.
That was pretty wild. And it was so fun. That was the thing. I have always wanted to go on adventures with my friends, and so this was the most iconic possible version. We're gotta get to this location at this specific time, and everything else is up for grabs, but we're doing it together. I was like, yes, amazing. And it worked so good.
Nothing
and I mean,
more
the video
wholesome and less ominous than going on an eclipse-based adventure with your friends. That's never resulted in a misbegotten prophecy.
It's never bad. Solar eclipses are always super
Nothing
chill
bad
party times.
ever happens during the eclipse.
No, it's always good, especially when you're with all your friends who you trust with your life. Don't read Berserk. No, do read Berserk. It's really good. But don't read Berserk if you're about to go on a trip with all your friends to hang out in a solar eclipse. Yeah, no, it was really interesting. I mean, the video is just probably worth a rewatch because I already covered most of this. But I do, now that it's had time to sink in, I think, it was a very, very cool experience in that truly it could not have been done justice. I wasn't prepared for how it would actually feel, even though I knew exactly what it would look like and what was happening. And I think that's because there is a sense of scale that you only experience looking at the actual open sky. I had that weird moment. I'm not even sure I can verbalize this correctly, but it occurred to me that the sky is the largest thing we can ever see. It is far vaster. Information comes from much further away. It's a much larger scope. So you see a picture of a constellation, and you're like, yep, I know what that shape is. Seeing it in the sky is completely different because you're like, oh, that's big. And the more I think about it, the bigger it is. And that's, I think, something that you cannot capture in visual mediums, even photography. And you can only sort of capture in describing shit. Because, a sense of wonder and awe at the scale of the universe is something that you kind of just have to be hit with. And you don't really feel it until you're there. And there's going to be a couple more total eclipses in a hot minute.
Yeah.
Not anymore over North America for a while, but...
Catch y'all in Spain.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I felt, I was talking to some other people I knew about it, and they were like, oh yeah, we were in the path of 90% totality, and I was like, you should have driven to get
Not
to the
the
path
same.
of 100. It's not the same, because
Yeah.
the whole time we were watching it happen, because we were sort of keeping an eye out for shadow snakes, because that was the thing we knew was going to happen when it was nearly totality.
Fucking shadow
The
snakes.
fucking
Everyone
shadow
loves the shadow
snakes. we were, I think we mentioned, we were posted up in the parking lot of a ski lodge near Lake Placid with a huge crowd of people. At one point, there were these kids that were chasing each other around screaming. We were like, shadow snakes got him.
Shadow snakes got 'em, yeah.
It's just...
I also really liked that this video was able to show a lot of the behind the scenes of like our prep for scoping out a spot. It was so fun to just like have that little slice of life of, you know, the work that went into the work and the play in a sense that went into making that happen. It's rare that we post like vlog style or like behind the scenesy kind of stuff, but I thought it was really fun. Like even like I was there. And I'm like, oh, this is cool.
It's cool, yeah.
Seeing it like this.
I really like that format of video. Like, we do it so infrequently. I mean, it feels like we're rediscovering the concept of a vlog, like 10 years behind the curve. And yeah, obviously, I'm not
to be fair, it's a very high effort vlog.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, we did wait for a cosmic
all
convergence.
Of us are in the same area at the same time.
It's rare, yeah. But the thing is, like, I love the concept so much. It's just like, for me, you really need a good reason to be vlogging. Like, it's not, you know, if you vlog every breakfast you have, like, nobody's going to pay attention when you're like, I'm vlogging a magical cosmic alignment. And like, I want more opportunities to do that. That's something I want to start thinking about more of, like, more, like, trips to like observe a cool thing and make videos about it, because I love doing it in Eugene and I love doing it in Lake Placid. It's just like, how many more cosmic convergences can I really like justify taking a road trip for? But if I can excuse it, I would love to do more of those things. So I guess this Y'all Sleepin' is a little bit like, I hope you guys like it, because I do want to do more stuff like it. It's kind of like I love storytelling, but I really love traveling and, you know, going on things that actually qualify as adventures.
Yeah.
So if I can do more of those, I would love to make the videos about them, because I also really like making the videos out of them.
So let Red know if you've got any upcoming cosmic events that we can start planning that.
Or if there's like a really good viewpoint, because the next time like Jupiter and Saturn get near each other, so I think Jupiter and Mars are currently close. Well, close-ish, close on a cosmic scale. I'll look into it. It's fine.
All that to say, there's a lot of cool cosmic and not-so-cosmic events coming up in the next year, and we had a lot of very cool ones in this last year. But we are just about done with this half of the podcast, which means we're about to go transition over to the Q&A and do more questions and answers. So, stay tuned for that.
Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Q&A portion of the Overly Sarcastic podcast, where we answer your questions from Ask OS Pod on Discord on this very special New Year's bonus. This first question is going to come from one of our lovely patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, support the channel, consider becoming a patron for a chance to have your question read first in a future episode. Every day I think about how quickly I could potentially do that little intro, just because it is the one that I think has the most component pieces and is the most the same every time.
Yeah.
It's a good challenge. I've had to slow my talking down over the years. Early videos were very fast because I was very anxious, but like sometimes I want to bust out the Eminem flow again.
Indigo, you could make a soundboard and then see how many episodes we go before people realize you're using a soundboard.
This is a really good... Ooh, all right. We'll check back in at the end of 2025 and see if maybe that idea happens. That's
Some
very
episode
funny.
next year is going to begin with Indigo having a soundboard, so you
I'm
gotta
the
keep your
only
ears
person,
open.
not to derail us immediately at the top of the Q&A, but I'm the only one of the three of us who's been on every single episode of the Ozpod, and the idea of an Indigo soundboard that could theoretically let me take a break one week is very funny.
Look, just to be clear, nobody's making you do all these podcasts except you. You're like, I got a great idea to eat the remaining 30 minutes of my free time.
Ain't I a stinker? This first question is from one of our lovely patrons. This comes from Queek the Charlatan. To Red and Blue, if you could each have a quote from you immortalized on a statue, what would it be, and what would your statue look like? So design a statue of yourself, and then put a quote that you think should be immortalized for all time on it.
This is not an answer. This is very much not an answer to the question, but I did want to highlight that at time of recording, the last 2 days in a row, we've had short scope where Blue has used the phrase full dong. Because we got Hot Frosty and the loincloth incident from Warhammer 40k back to back.
Blue does just like the phrase dong in general.
Dong is an inherently funny word.
It's one of the funniest ways to say penis. It's one of the funniest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because like
so
you can make that vowel as like round and nasally or weird as you want to, and the word still works.
And you can like there's dong and then there's dong. Like if you move the D further back in the
More New York-y.
mouth, yeah. The further back the D is, don't continue this sentence, Red. End it now.
Weird quote to put on your statue.
Every day we inch closer and closer to just automatically creating the cold open for the episode in the first 5 minutes of the
No. Okay. Okay, I now have to be funnier at some other points in the pod. I desperately must
challenge
refocus
mode.
this.
The pressure is on, Red. You're fucking screwed.
Oh God.
I'm going to tank the rest of the podcast so it's not funny enough to have anything be the cold open instead of that.
To wrestle us away from the dong conversation, maybe it would help to talk about what your statues would look like, and then we could put a quote on them. So if you were to have a statue of you made, what does it look like? What's the material?
We're a very classy
what's the
channel.
style?
Only those super.
I think it'd be very funny because I went to a university that had a lot of abstract metal sculptures on campus, as I imagine many universities do.
Very
and I do think
sculptures.
that if you're going to make a statue of me, I think it's very funny to make it an abstract metal sculpture that is not distinguishable as a person at all. I want to be a series of shapes. I want to be shapes in an interesting material.
At University of Chicago, there is a statue at the site of, I think, the first sustained fission reaction.
Yeah, from
and
Manhattan
it
Project.
looks. I don't think anyone could ever exactly decide what it looked like. But like the urban legend on campus was that it was designed to look kind of like a mushroom cloud and kind of like a skull, and it mostly just kind of looked like a blob.
Yeah, it looks like a blob.
Yeah. Fun fact: the Serena Fossil Lab was repurposed from the high energy physics building that they did some of those reactions in, and it sets off Geiger counters. So
Nice.
radioactive dinosaurs. Anyway, statues. I feel like that one like School of Athens pose would be the easy one.
Oh yeah.
But I also think it's important to design a statue in mind of like how funny will it be when a pigeon lands on a part of this statue.
Oh yeah.
Like there's that one where like the angel has like the hammer raised and the pigeon will keep like roosting on the part where the hammer's about to hit. Like that's funny. Or like the statues where like cats can sit on the laps. Those are always good. Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, how easily could animals interact with the statue? Which abstract metal sculpture, lots of little potential nooks and crannies there.
It's true.
Birds
Very
to land on. Blue, I'm going to take a wild swing and say that you're probably going for something in marble and classic.
Yeah, Naxian marble specifically. Otherwise, what did I even die for?
We're assuming that you're dead for this statue to be made?
I don't know.
That wasn't part of the question.
This is, hundreds of years in the future when you've been immortalized in stone in your own lifetime and this is persevered.
Ooh, okay. I want the full Valkyrie treatment. I want to be on a horse.
Yeah. Get like a quadriga, like wings and everything.
Exactly. Yeah, wings, the winged helmet, the hair, more of it than I actually have because let's just go full let's go like 80s Starfire with this bitch, like inhuman quantities. Yeah. Or just make one of those really big statues, like I love it when they just make...
like the Statue of Unity in India, that's the size of the moon.
Yeah, I think unreasonably enormous statues are an underrated staple of modern design. Like, I need the city I live in to look like Gotham from Batman and Robin, where you can drive motorcycles along the giant statues of just people that are just around.
This adds a new dimension to this, because if your quote is immortalized on your statue, which, by the way, we do still need quotes for everybody.
Right. I don't remember any words I've ever said.
That Robin could ride a motorcycle in front of in a shot to create a visual gag? In which case, it just brings us back around to Dong, which is very funny. But if you guys, for the serious answer of it, if you were going to put a quote on your statue, what's the quote that you want remembered for all time? Alongside your image.
Beyond Egg Baby best episode. Let's see. And now we run into the problem that I don't remember a goddamn thing I've ever said in my life.
Yeah, if we had time to pull up the wiki and stuff, see what the audience thinks is.
This is great.
Indicative.
Actually, I'm going to right now go onto the quote section of the wiki give me 2 minutes. Continue to describe your statues. Do your
I think our TV tropes page also has a quote subpage.
Yeah, TV tropes.
I haven't checked it in a little while. They've removed your ability to view edit history unless you're logged in, so I can no longer just see the updates, which is slightly. And our page is kind of long.
TV tropes, best quotes for overly sarcastic productions. It's actually pretty short, so it should not be too.
Oh, we're not that funny.
We're unmemorable. Bro fell off.
Red, you've got, I'm a sleeve hater with very high standards, all right?
Classic.
If I'm going to be displaying these deadly weapons, I want to do it in a nice case,
Which, naturally, then, you would be wearing, like, a tank top or vest or some such.
Obviously.
So then
now that we actually, this is a pretty good opportunity to bring this up. Sophia, I must tell the people at home that we were on a recording recently, and I had a tank top that said Up Dog, and you said, oh God, I hope that you don't wear that under your button down when we record the New Year's Eve bonus pod.
Prophecy to be fulfilled.
Yeah, well, you'll be pleased to know, this is the reason why I did the flannel again. and I have real button downs. I've been to 2 weddings at this point. They don't let you in if you're wearing a flannel, but they're transparent, so it would have spoiled the fun. Which is, of course, that I've actually brought a cat instead. So, pardon me,
I feel a lot better about this self-fulfilling prophecy.
I thought you might, yeah. I was like, it's going to be boring if I just do the thing she's expecting.
This is a nice little win for me because I was immediately humbled by the only Indigo quote on this page being "Tumblr is right."
Oh, that's the one you asked them not to put on, yeah.
Yeah, Indigo, before requesting not to be quoted. So
Perfect. Excellent work, everybody.
Oh, amazing.
Beautiful collaboration on this one. But yeah, I'll take the Sleep Hater one.
Sleep Haters classic. Yeah, that's great. Do I have a
put that
top
on my
quote on
Valkyrie
there?
statue.
Blue, you've got 2 that are kind of in conversation.
Okay.
One is, I think, from the Philosopher's Song, so it's a little long, so I'm not going to read it all out. And the second one is Red, what do you think? I'd say I got the point across. And Blue, seems a little overly sarcastic to me, which is a pretty nice little capstone.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
If we do the School of Athens one, that's a good one to put on the bottom.
Yeah. But it is like, you guys have said a lot of words over the years, so maybe listeners go ahead and
Perhaps
comment.
too many.
'Cause Spotify has comments now, but also like this is going up on YouTube.
Yeah,
what do
goes
you
up on
think
YouTube.
the best Red and Blue quote for a statue would be? Because we've got more questions to get to. This one comes from Hazel Slave for 96 hours. To Red, in the first Standard Pod episode of 2024, you said you were following a superstition that said what you were doing as the clock passed midnight to the next year was what you were going to be doing for the rest of the year. What were you trying to do for this year? Was get a better sleep schedule by sleeping through midnight, if I recall correctly. Has the superstition paid off, or is your sleep schedule still horrible?
It's it's a little shaky. I've been sort of trying to balance it out a little bit. The problem is the secret extra productive morning hours still sing their siren call. And so like once every 2 weeks or so, I'll be like, I'll just keep going. And I'll go to bed at 3 a.m. and I'll wake up between 7 and 8 like I always do, which is extremely annoying. Like if I could just sleep later, everything would be fine. And sometimes I can, but a lot of the time I can't, which is frustrating. But overall, it's been like pretty good. It's like 6 to 8 hours a night is pretty solid. I've had a couple weeks of rough sleep in there. But unfortunately, things do actually work to fix that. Like exercising heavily, you will sleep better. Anytime I take a trip and I'm accidentally walking like 7 miles a day, I will sleep like a baby the whole time. So like I just really got to do more stuff, and then the sleep will just kind of follow.
I've gotten a lot less post-midnight messages from Red, which has been a nice little upgrade this year.
Well,
that's usually how I
know.
gauge if you're staying up late. I'm like, oh, Red's really like in the weeds on comic stuff right now because it's 2 a.m. and I'm also awake and I've got to.
To be fair, that has happened a few times. The main thing is the reason
but not
why
as frequently.
Not as frequently. I've been trying to dial it back because I drive more consistently now and. Don't drive if you are super sleep deprived. It is worse than being drunk. So I mean, they're both bad. Don't also drink and drive. But like if you've gotten not enough sleep, it's not safe for you to drive. So when I like have to drive someone a place, I'm like, all right, I need to get enough sleep just by the quantities. Like, and also like there's Mythbusters prove that like just lying down for 20 minutes with your eyes shut, not doing anything else, gives you the benefits of a nap, even if you don't actually sleep. So like,
alternatively, if you are really sleep deprived, it is worse than being drunk. So you can get drunk really fast, and then that's better than being sleep deprived. And you can keep going on your way.
Bad. Incorrect. Extremely loud buzzer. But yeah, no, I think, I mean, it's a funny little superstition. It gives me something to do at midnight at the turn of the year rather than contemplate the inevitable march of time. Depending on what we do this year, the thing I might have been doing was playing Skyrim.
No better way to kick off the year.
I guess.
You said you wanted to go on more quests, and you could actively be going on a quest while the year turns over.
That's true. Or I could be getting attacked by a dragon, which would also be fun. So
Kind of
complaint
falls into
withdrawn.
Yeah. So it seems like it's gonna be cool. Well, this next question comes from Joopy to Blue. I'm currently in my first year of my history major, and I just want to know, and this next part's in all caps, holy crap, does it get easier?
Well, it depends. As you get further along in your program, you'll specialize into the stuff that you know better and like better. So theoretically, yes. The the kinds of assignments you'll be doing, I guess, really depends on your program. So, like, if your university has a bunch of, like, real hardline teachers or a bunch of, real laid-back people at, like, the 200 and 300 level, then I don't know if it's going to get easier or harder. But, like, theoretically, as you get further along in your program, you stop doing the general stuff that may kind of trip you up, and then you get into the things that are fun. So, like, for me, I found, even though my classes had more requirements of them and, like more complicated assignments and like a greater depth of research and understanding as I got further along, it was all on stuff that I knew and liked and cared enough about to like take that high level class specifically. So like my intro modern philosophy was one of the most annoying classes I took just because I thought all of it was so stupid and bullshit that I'm like, this sucks, I hate this. Whereas I was taking a like 300 or 400 level class on like philosophy and rhetoric and like how they fought each other in ancient Greece. And I'm like, oh, this rules. Even though the assignments were like objectively bigger and harder, it was easier to do them because I was like, oh yeah, no, this is great. I love this. So,
Which is
like,
funny.
Yes, it does get easier, I think, but I mean, it depends on your professors and what classes you take. So
I will
don't
say,
know.
some universities, the intro level courses are designed to shake out people from the program. When I was at the University of Chicago, it was kind of a running gag that like 60% of the people who came in would be like, I'm going to be a physics major. And then by second year, like 20% of people would be physics majors. Because the intro courses are designed to be unforgiving and super hard. The computer science minor I took was also like that. The early classes were like, there were like 130 people in the class and there were like 3 TAs and the teacher never graded anything themselves. And like, it was designed to be unpleasant. So if you could power through it, they were like, all right, we're filtering out. And the thing is, I don't think this is good, but I do think that this is something to be aware of. Not every class is going to be designed like that. And also, the further along in your major, usually the classes get smaller and more specialized. And sometimes you're getting professors teaching you like their specific thing they're passionate about rather than the 100 level class that they are legally obligated to do by the university. So even if the class doesn't get easier, the teacher being passionate about it can make it a more good experience for you either way.
Yeah,
So.
I feel like we're kind of grokking onto the secret hack, which is not that the actual work changes really. Like that might, you're still going to be writing big essays, doing big research projects, et cetera, but you probably are going to be a lot more interested in what you're learning about as you get more specialized and progress further. This was true of like my more humanities-based major is like, the intro Chinese, history classes are pretty broad, and so I was a little less interested in them. Then as I got to specialize later on into more like specific areas of culture, it got a lot more interesting. And so even though I was doing technically more difficult work, I enjoyed the process a lot more, and so it felt less painful. And that's true for your professors as well. Is like they get to teach their higher level classes that are more specialized to their interests, so they're probably making it more interesting than they would for their like 100 level intro to the history of everything class or whatever it is. So
and you're also more used to the concept of being in college, which
Yeah.
gets easier.
Everything
with
will be
repetition.
simpler, yeah.
Time heals all academic wounds.
Except for the I'm late for class nightmares that never really go away.
Yes. Except for when you're wronged, in which case it will linger in your mind forever. But this is not going to linger here forever. Instead, this question demands to be answered right now. This one from Boat for Red. What is your favorite drink you've made so far? You've made a lot of drinks this year. Do you have a favorite bev?
Well, a lot of them I haven't made. I do have to shout out the hot chocolate I am presently drinking. It is quite nice. I always go a little bit ham with it. It's funny. So I'm very much an advocate for like the most chocolate dessert I can acquire in any given location. I'll usually test it out. This is not just because this is a thing I like. It's also a good way to like test the quality of like the restaurant that you're going to, because a lot of things that are chocolate are actually cocoa, and a lot of the cocoa is not good cocoa. So you can tell like, oh, this chocolate mousse cake is actually not, and it's also bad, and therefore it's like, okay, well now I don't really trust the quality of this other place. By far the most unforgiving metric I judge restaurants by is I will order a hot chocolate because most of them are Swiss Miss and water. And if they are, then I don't go back. Because it's like, look, prove to me that you can actually put effort into the simplest non-caffeinated, non-alcoholic beverage you have on your menu. And a lot of the time they don't. But sometimes they do. I was pleasantly surprised by a diner in Fort Washington when I was out for PAX Unplugged recently, because I got a hot chocolate and it had chocolate in it. It was like good. You could tell. But yeah, so my hot chocolate tirade aside, I'm quite fond of the like peach iced tea you can get from any given Paris baguette. Those are always quite nice. It's probably my go-to like drink I know I will enjoy. So yeah, for the fruity option is that, and then for the non-fruity option it is going to be hot chalky.
Respectable all around. Well, this next question comes from Hazel Slave for 96 Hours. To all, what is something you are most proud of the other people on the podcast episode for doing? Could be things off channel, things on channel, or whatever. So we've done a lot this year. What's something you're very proud of everyone else for doing?
I like it. I want to go first.
Yeah,
you sure go for
it. Blue, the Veneziad is the coolest thing. I'm so proud of you.
Aw,
like
thanks.
you wrote up this absolute passion project, and like I'm very much a believer in like art. You make it for yourself first, and then for everybody else after. And it's not you make it for yourself only, but you have to make it for yourself first to make sure that it's good and it's coming from like a genuine place. And the Veneziad is like the most iconic example of that I can think of, because it's like truly you were like, I'm making this for me. I don't care if anyone else gets it. I want the coffee table book. And it was fun because like in the process of writing it, you figured out a bunch of stuff about yourself. You were like, Ace, these characters, they're Ace, and wait.
Right, yeah, because I wrote Niccolo and Serena before I knew I was Ace. So I'm like, why do I need to give them like a romantic subplot? This is irrelevant to the concept of the book.
It feels completely unnecessary. And wait a minute, and it's just like, I love when you like figure stuff out about yourself through your art and the things that make sense to you, and the fact that it like blew Wraithmark's projections out of the water, like that's just fun. That's the numerical validation of the cool thing. And Indigo, it has been an extremely big year for you and your podcasting empire. One of the cool things about me getting to experience PAX Unplugged this year is I got to see how good you are at like connecting with all of these people who are tremendously like cool and accomplished in their fields, and then they just all like show up at your apartment. We all hang out and watch Wally speedrun Elden Ring.
That was insane.
I heard about that.
This is unrelated, but I had people from PAX Unplugged over my apartment, and Wally decided before a lot of folks had shown up, I'm just going to start speedrunning Elden Ring in my living room, and then he didn't stop, and people were just really into watching Wally speedrun Elden Ring live.
Here's the thing, I don't do good at parties, so it was really good to have an option where I could just be on the couch with the cat, watching something happen that I didn't need to participate in. It was awesome. But yeah, no.
Similarly, my thing is that it's been really cool, Indigo, to see you not just like the podcasting empire, but like be the foundation underneath which like 5 of our like favorite peers on YouTube operate on. So like Dom and Max Miller especially, like you edit their videos and there's so much great stuff that comes out of their channels that is like built on your work in a very meaningful way, and I think it's super cool to see like all of that kind of like trickle out from your computer in Adobe Premiere, despite the fact that you never want to see it again after this month.
It's been a busy holiday week. But yeah, that's very sweet.
Yeah, I think that's really, really cool. And then Red, I'll turn it around because I had never really read through Aurora beyond when it first came out, and I was reading like a little bit here and there, and I got to like chapter 3, and I'm like, I can't do the once like every 3 days thing. I forget what happened. So I went back at the very end of last year, so I'll kind of include it, when I was on Christmas break with Cyan and her family, and I read through all of it on my laptop, and I'm like, holy fuck, this is really good. Like, damn, like I knew people liked it, but like I get it now, and that was really cool to see and read that and be like, oh yeah, no, this does slap. Like I can't wait for everyone else to get their hands on this physically. So that's been really cool for me to see.
Oh, shucks.
I kind of want to Bogart Blues for Red a little bit, just because like it's so cool that Aurora's getting published physically. I mean, like it's very impressive to see you do this like self-motivated publication online, but just like to have to engage with something that is a very complicated and slow process because you want to share your art with more people, I think is incredibly admirable and very, very cool. And I cannot wait to have a little Aurora volume on my bookshelf alongside the nice Veneziad.
A big one. We've been discussing trying to get the page count manageable.
Having a larger Aurora volume on my bookshelf next to the Veneziad. But I just think it's really cool to get to see you constantly pursue and expand your art out beyond the scope of what it started as. And Blue, I think I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but just seeing you expand History Maker's definition and really all of your projects this year, getting into the architecture videos, I think you've been really expanding out what you do and how you spread information. And I think that that's so, so cool. It's fun to get to see you get to like flex your passions a lot too, and be like, no, actually the things that I'm interested in are cool and interesting, and you all get to hear about them.
Linguistics, it's cool.
Yeah,
Get it light,
exactly.
everybody can take a look. Yeah.
I think that that's very, very cool, and I'm so proud of you for
appreciate that.
bringing that to the world and making great content through it. So
I do want to
feels
quickly
good.
say, on the subject of the publication, Indigo, to piggyback off your point, like, the first time that we kind of ran through the traditional publishing circuit, we, like, left. We're like, oh, this sucks. Like, trying to get anyone to understand, like, what it is that we're doing. Like, pitching a book concept for, like, a nonfiction book. I'm not going to name any publishers, but, like, the people we were talking to did not get it.
Because people approach the channel, because we have a decently large following, so they were like, if you make a book, there's a guaranteed number of people who will buy it. So there were people who were like, hey, I'm with do you want to do we want to like you could post like a nonfiction thing, maybe like debunk some myths or something like that, or like that kind of thing. And
you're looking for Milo Rossi. He's 2 doors down.
He's over there doing his own thing in a much more professional space than we are, and we were sort of like, this is a little bit of a bummer, because it was kind of like, because we both were like, oh, it'd be so cool to publish a book, but not these books.
And this was before Aurora or the Veneziad were in motion. This was like late 2021 maybe.
I mean, Aurora was in motion, but it was before it had built up enough that I was like, yes, I want this out there. And also
before it was in physical motion.
For sure, because that's like a much more recent thing.
Yeah.
And so, but it is funny because that did lead into this, because my agent, who shopped it around, was somebody who had approached us on behalf of one of those publishers, then went solo, and then was like, if you have any ideas, feel free. And we were like, we were thinking about this. And also there's that comic Brit's been publishing. And she was like, what? And then like a day later, she was like, can I please shop this around? So it is like a direct chain from a slightly like bummer of like, oh, it's a shame that this isn't working, because it would be cool if it was working, but it's just, the stars aren't aligning, and then it all kind of worked out.
From the jump from like, oh, we're working with a publisher and they don't get it, to, your agent is like, oh, this rules, I need to publish this for you, and then taking it to a publisher, and everyone at the publisher is like, we understand exactly what you're going for, we're going to make this great, and seeing like what it could have been, what it actually is like, oh man, it's a testament to the quality of the underlying work. I think so. This is a great question.
It's cool. Nice to do spend a little. Get to have a little ego boost and spread some positivity at the end of the year. But this next question is completely unrelated to that. It comes from Delius. To all, Mario has Wario, Luigi has Waluigi. What would Wa Red, Wa Blue, and Wadigo be like?
Well, Wa Blue is Azul, canonical character who exists.
That exists.
He's just Spanish and he's a fascist.
Physical design wise, we have to stick with the general design language. So the thing is, Wario and Waluigi fit the design language of Mario and Luigi. One of them is smaller and more rotund. The other one is taller and lankier. So we would have to, Wa Blue and Wa Red would have to be the same, tall and completely normal sized that we are. I know there's a Wa Peach design, but I think she might be fanin.
I think that's a fan thing. I don't know that exists in the games.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that
we don't need the internet to have any more versions of Peach to fuck with.
She already had a whole game with little outfits in it.
All the work in that sentence. Color-wise, it would have to be inverted because, of course, Luigi purple, Waluigi green, so it would have to be. Oh, damn it! Cyan's already taken.
Cyan is already taken.
Turquoise. Wild Red's color scheme is turquoise, and Wild Blues would be, I guess, orange.
Orange,
I mean,
or we can just do like periwinkle and orange, because that's kind of like a purplish blue and like an orangish red. Yeah,
that works. And generally, I guess if you make like one of the princesses evil, you make them goth. So, but that's not that different.
I do think to get back to like the roots of the Waluigi character at the very least, I think Wa Indigo is just better at tennis than me. I think realistically, like that's someone needed a doubles partner. And to me, that's a very low bar to clear up because I am very bad at tennis.
Okay. So Wa Indigo good at tennis. I mean, really, what Wa Indigo must be good at is skateboarding.
Yes.
You're so right.
Oh,
You're so right about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You perhaps have gotten me there.
Yes, I think, but maybe she's a jack of all trades.
I guess it could just be Tony Hawk, right? Like, this could actually be the answer to the Tony Hawk nightmare.
This is like some Looney Tunes back in action stuff, where it's like all these cartoon characters and then Tony Hawk.
It's just Tony Hawk and a mustache.
Yeah, exactly. But how would we tell? The man is unrecognizable.
Yeah. He's a chameleon.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I guess just while Red have any defining traits.
While Red
would
has
be-
Make
poofy
them
Renaissance
antagonistic.
sleeves.
Ooh,
True.
big sleeves, yeah.
The thing is, it would be
Yeah.
very funny if evil me was just completely indistinguishable from regular me.
And of course, a big mustache, yeah.
Yeah, with a big mustache, which of course peels off. So,
Yes, obviously.
Or does
Yeah.
like While Red have like an undercut or something like that? The antithesis of big hair.
Just shaved head.
Bald.
Or that, yeah.
Bald. I do think this is evil me and they're indistinguishable from me is funny enough that I would lay claim to it being like the weird gimmick about my Wah version. It's just like,
Could be
oh wait,
strong.
they're both goblins. Shit, there's two of them. But yeah.
Yeah. I think we've established that like Azul is just very academically dishonest,
Mm-hmm.
and that I think we can make that a defining character of Wah Blue in this instance.
I think Wah Blue also does like all the worst practices when doing tourism and like archaeological
yeah.
sites. Like
Just takes
be like,
rocks from places.
Yeah, it takes the cool
Yeah.
rock, snaps off the stalagmites in the caves that they're exploring.
I got lightheaded in real life.
When I was in New Zealand, I got to tour the Waitomo glowworm caves, and the tour guides were like the descendants of the family that had initially discovered the damn thing back in the 1800s. And one of them was like showing there were these like kind of fenced off areas with these stalagmites, and they were talking about like it takes about like 100 years for it to grow this tall. That one was snapped off and taken home by a tourist who was in last year. Don't be like that person. And I was just like, ooh. Yeah, so
Jeez.
Ooh, how it hurts.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a pretty nice, I guess, antagonist gallery, I'll say.
Yeah.
Because, again, if any of us ever need a doubles partner in tennis,
True.
they're in the roster. But we've got one time for one last question, and I think it's only appropriate, as we do most years, to bring it back to that eternal bit started episode 1, the
Yep.
time heist. So
I was
this
considering
question,
doing that tank top, but I like the Cleo
Yeah.
option better.
Yeah.
This question comes from Lucy the Duchess. To all, the OSP time heist has become a smash hit. Now it is up to you to create merchandise for it. What weird variations would your characters have for the purpose of selling action figures? So we
Oh, so we're
We've-
talking like what Zords do you get? Like what
What swords
accessories?
do you get? Which special cold weather bat suit do you wear? Like
Yep.
Okay,
what
so-
variations on the existing kind of roster in the existing world do we insert for the sake of merchandise?
Yeah.
Let's get toyetic with
Every
it.
every character that we bring into the time heist crew, Red and Blue, have like a that period costume version action
yeah,
figure
this is
For sure,
strong.
to
for sure.
go along with. So like that's immediately like 12 toys right
Yeah,
there.
immediately
Huge.
you have a whole
Yeah.
line out of that. So it's like we got the ancient Greece version, we got the like Joan of Arc,
Yeah, like
Knights
medieval
version.
Nottingham bullshit.
Yeah,
your
yeah.
Renaissance for Da Vinci.
Yeah. For
sure.
We go. Where
There,
else? 'Cause
Sun
there's
Wukong shows up
so
a
we go to
bunch.
China.
So, you get
So
some-
yeah, ancient China.
Yeah.
Ancient China.
We can do like dirigible captain steampunk kind of.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Huge,
That's
yeah.
a.
Could be
We
good.
could also do like the time break edition where it's all anachronistic because it's like, oh, the timeline has been shattered in the sequel, so
Yeah.
now your costume is like it's got the goggles obviously, but it's
Yeah.
also got like the toga and
You do. I think we established in the canon you do go to the future and meet Old Man Indigo. So you could
Right.
get a future
True.
outfit, to get a little
Yeah, we
Batman
did
Beyond
future
action.
outfit, yeah.
Yeah.
Little Aria of Sorrow
A
action.
little cyberpunk situation.
yeah, we could
Yeah.
do Tron lines on everything. I like it. I
Yeah.
like it a lot.
Yeah.
But I do think it would be so funny because the specific vibe of a story that is desperately attempting to introduce new toy lines is completely incomparable to anything else. It is always so obvious. It's like, not to worry, guys. I've got some special toys for us, and everyone gets like their own
Yeah.
customized little gun
Yes.
and
so
a fun
what is
little
our
outfit.
big special thing that could conceivably shoot a little plastic like little pellet out of the front of it in the action
Yeah.
figure? You know, when you push the button and it goes. Pew.
We can get Da Vinci to build anything. We can have a
Exactly.
whole line of like stuff he builds off screen. If we have
think
like
it does
one
all have
shot
to
of his
look-
workshop, all of those are toys.
Somebody picks one
Because
up and
that's
then
a
you get the
set.
action figure.
Yeah.
Right? You
True.
get Da Vinci's Workshop and it comes
Yeah.
with Da Vinci, but then you have to buy all the individual action figures for all the other guys who have like the Da Vinci outfit
Right.
and the weapon that
Yeah.
he's put up together, and it's
They've
like a
recently
rocket
been-
launcher, a grappling hook.
My mom's been buying some action figures recently, and apparently they're doing this thing where they're packaging the full action figure with like a piece of another one. So she got like a Hulk leg along with an
What in
action
the
figure.
Games Workshop fuck is that?
Right? Like, I don't think we should be taking cues from that, guys. It's not good.
Anyone who has a helmet or a mask, I remember this from when I was a kid with Power Rangers toys, is you could like press a button and it would flip the middle of their chest to like the mask version and the unmasked version, and the head would just literally swirl into it. I
Yes.
think that should be an element we
yes.
incorporate.
Yeah. We can also, if we have like Da Vinci's flying machine, we can do like in Tears of the Kingdom, you can change the cloth pattern on Link's glider.
Yep.
We can get like little wings you can swap in and swap out, or sell each of them as a different toy entirely.
Villainous.
I
Think
do
of all the shit we don't do with our
Okay.
pins.
No, hear me out. Okay.
We're so reasonable and responsible in how we sell
It's
these.
like, Da Vinci had like a ton of flying machine designs, all these ornithopters, corkscrew things. I think that when we all ride into battle, each of us has our own one, and they're all different,
yeah.
and they're all customized. And that way, everyone gets a vehicle.
Yeah.
And little goggles for when they're flying, for safety.
Naturally.
Well, these are all, and all the items we propose, these are all individual toy lines that spawn simultaneously, so that, you got to collect them all of the, like, the
Exactly,
vehicle
yeah.
series, the, like, Da Vinci's Lab series, the, like, Future Arc series. Like, all of these are different runs of toys, and they have differing quality. People have a lot of strong opinions about which one is a good one.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's because we are children of the 90s, but the only possible advertising campaign I can think of for this has, like, the exact same energy as, like, the shit that would play between episodes of Ben 10 Alien Force.
Yeah, there's a guy reading out the commercial, and it all sounds like, it's new, it's brand, it's happening, and you get your very own time heist action figures. You can make him fly into action with the patented Da Vinci's grappling hook.
Sun Wukong with Kung Fu grip.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That tone,
Totally radical.
yeah. Maybe we could do, because these were toys that I also always coveted when we would go to the dinosaur museum when I was a kid, but it's that, like, moon sand that's got a little fossil inside that you get to, like, excavate.
yeah.
Maybe we could introduce that somehow, like an artifact line, and it's, like, a specific artifact for each character that you get to, like, dig out.
Right, that's the thing, but it's a randomized box and you don't know what you're getting. It
it's
like
a
comes
loot crate.
in it's a loot
Yeah.
crate,
Oh
but like
my
it comes in a little like
Oh.
egg of compressed sand and it's like, what Opart will we unearth this time? Whoa.
And there's, like, a
it's
special
oops, it's the
secret
laptop they
one
brought
that's,
back.
like, it got, like, like, the little gold paint on it, so it's extra shiny, that, like, flakes off
yeah.
instantaneously when you get it out of the sand.
We also need some kind of like shovelware trading card game version, so that the kids at school can be like trading their time
Yeah.
heist baseball cards or whatever. And so you need the holographic versions. You need, of course, one for every different movie. Everyone needs a redesign between movies so that they can do new action figures. And like,
Of course.
I think everyone needs also a different hairstyle except for us, obviously, because no touchy. But like, so that way, like, it's not just a different outfit on the doll. You also need to get a different doll because the hair's
Yeah,
wrong
the hair's-
otherwise.
yeah.
Real Arcane season 2
Oh my
midway
gosh.
through
Yeah,
energy.
for real.
Everyone got a haircut.
Yeah.
Echo.
Very strong. I feel like what we've really learned from this question is not how the time heist will eventually be merchandised, but that if anyone ever gave us the full control of like Hasbro, we would do villainous things with it.
Well, we've talked
But
about like
Net
we keep
positive
having
villainous things, because at least you get a bunch of toys out of it.
positive for who? We do keep
Yeah.
having these conversations. Like I don't remember when it was. We were like, what if we did like custom dice sets? And we were like, no, that's a line we can't. Morally
immoral.
speaking, we can't inflict. Like that's the selling plastic crack to kids thing. Like
Yeah.
it would be the same if we started dealing in gunpla. Like that's a line we can't cross without coming. There's
The
no coming
real
back from
world
that.
OSP is remarkably dedicated to making sure that any merchandise we put out is going to be a nice quality and a well thought out design. But in this hypothetical world where we are shamelessly making toys for children, yes, there will be 10,000 different variants of these.
You guys, like, in real life, don't understand how many product ideas we say no to all the time because we're like, this is just making a thing to make the thing. Like, can we just make
yeah.
some pins instead?
We do like
try
coming back to
so hard to be reasonable about the things we sell.
Really, what I think this teaches us is that we've all been so relentlessly advertised to that we've
Yeah.
learned the language very clearly.
Yes.
Well, it's a good thing we use these powers for good.
Yeah.
Exactly. If I have to have the Fushigi guy stuck in my head for 20 plus years, then at least I'm going to learn a lesson from it. But speaking of learning lessons, Red, we are at the tail end of this podcast, and that means I have to ask you if after a whole nother year of the Overly Sarcastic podcast, you have managed to learn the lesson of how to do the outro.
Well, that's not fair. Blue didn't have to do the intro to this one.
I didn't have to do the intro. You know what? I got you, Red. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Overly Sarcastic podcast. We will be back in some amount of time with a regular episode back on any of your favorite podcast platforms of choice, because this is the only one we do in camera, except for the other ones that are on the channel that are the bonus episodes that are not in camera but are on the channel, so keep an eye out for those seasonally as we get through the year. We will be taking our customary January break, but you can catch us in the back half of the month as we get back to business and then continue on our merry way throughout the winter and beyond. Yeah. Bye!
Red, how does it feel that every time Blues had to do the outro, he pretty much nails it?
Nails it? He didn't even do it until next time I've been Blue.
I didn't even do that part.
Nailed it my ass. You're grading this shit on a curve.